What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Blazers Uprise live here on a Monday, December 7th. We're going to talk about the number 7 debate today because that has been a debate going on in Blazer circles and it's pretty divided, and I feel actually kind of strong about it. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the potential that this preseason game is canceled. I did drop a video talking about, this situation. So if you want like a video format wrap up at some point, I did drop a video on the Blazers closing the practice facility. Last night I dropped that, and then this morning I dropped a Rodney Hood video. So been churning out the content for you guys. Hope you're enjoying it. Other than that, we'll kind of take your questions. There's not a whole lot planned for today. It's just kind of the calm before the storm, the calm before we get some actual basketball later this week. Hopefully, obviously it's dependent upon the situation the Blazers are in right now. But I got my fingers crossed for basketball on Friday. It's Monday, so the countdown is almost done. Hopefully it doesn't get extended. Yeah, so how's everybody doing? How's your day been? How's your Monday been? Eric, how's your Monday been, bro?
Well, it's been alright. Just the usual school and family time.
Yeah, in fantasy football, our league is going down to the wire with if Eric wins this week, he's gonna play me in the first round of the fantasy football playoffs next week. Basically, is how it's shirted out, and I do not want that to happen because Eric's team is probably better than the other team I could play. So I have my finger. I don't know. I'm kind of rooting against Eric right now, as like a complimentary way, because I don't want to have to deal with your team when I might be dealing with injuries to mine. So anyway, that'll be interesting though. That'll be interesting. That'll be a rivalry. We will do a fantasy basketball league. I will hit some people up this upcoming week. Probably like people that like I know best in the community. I'll send invites to, if that makes sense. Yeah, so I don't know, Eric. I always generally toss it over to you and ask you what you want to talk about first. We could take questions. We could talk about the number 7 debate. We could get right into the thick of that. We could talk about this preseason game. It's up to you.
Hi, Mom. Let's talk about a couple NBA stories real quick.
Okay, yeah. Warm up with some James Harden, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. First, I mentioned this comment to you before we went on the air, but Doc Rivers absolutely annihilating Paul George today by saying that he doesn't care if Ben Simmons can't shoot because he's been coaching Paul George. And yeah, I love it. Love to see that. Yeah,
Doc Rivers hated him before coaching him last season just because, family turmoil. But, yeah, and then Paul George, did what he did in the playoffs and then tried to blame it on Doc Rivers, saying that Paul George had this quote saying that Doc Rivers tried to use him like JJ Redick, even though the advanced analytics stated that Paul George ran a higher percentage of pick and rolls than any other year in his career. JJ Redick doesn't run pick and rolls. JJ Redick is not a pick and roll player, right? Like basically the stats showed that Paul George was lying in terms of blaming Doc Rivers for using him like a spot-up shooter like JJ Redick, because that simply didn't happen. The stats showed that simply didn't happen. Watching them play, that simply didn't happen. When Paul George was used as a spot-up shooter, I mean, he kind of struggled. That viral clip of him shooting it off the backboard off the side of the backboard in Game 7. But that's not why he was struggling. That was such a BS quote. So I love Doc Rivers clapping back with that. Not only is that funny, but that's also like deserved, because Paul George is once again not taking responsibility for his own struggles and like trying to pass it off onto something or someone else.
Yeah, and then he also made the comment about Ty Lue being on the bench next to him last year, so nothing's going to change. He was there for all of it too. So
yeah,
yep.
Doc Rivers is pretty
rivalries.
outspoken.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wish Doc Rivers was coaching a Western Conference team. You'd get more of a rivalry there. Now he's completely across the coast. But yeah, I mean, it's rare that you get a player versus coach rivalry quite like that. So
that's got some deep rooted issues there
yeah,
between those two.
yeah. Yeah, so I wonder, if those deep-rooted issues didn't exist, if this situation would play out differently. I wonder if, like, Paul George throwing Doc Rivers under the bus and, like, trying to blame Doc Rivers for his own struggles is how much of that is, like, Paul George just being convoluted in terms of, how he was used, and how much of that is, like, him having personal feelings towards Doc Rivers.
But like, if you're Paul George, just like leave the man alone, dude. You already did
Yeah.
that to his daughter. Like, do you really have to like bring up personal stuff after he's gone as coach? Also, like, just let the man be, dude. You messed up his daughter, and like, I mean, obviously she's with a better person now with Seth Curry, but
Yeah, if
it's,
anybody doesn't know that story, they're like, "Wait, Seth Curry? What?" Like, yeah, Paul George cheated on Doc Rivers' daughter when they were engaged, right? Weren't they engaged, or were they
yeah,
not?
I
Or were
think
they
they
just
were
dating?
engaged or married. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think they were married. I think they were engaged, and Paul George cheated on Doc Rivers' daughter with a stripper.
Mm-hmm.
And
Who we
yeah,
just
so
got
that's
engaged to now.
yeah. Now Paul George is engaged to the stripper, and now Doc Rivers' daughter is either engaged or married to Seth Curry. I don't know if that wedding has already happened, but yeah. So that's the whole like weird family triangle there. Just
And
weird NBA triangle.
as Thomas Ransky points out, Seth Curry is now playing for Doc in Philadelphia.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that. Yeah. So yeah, that's awesome. He got the he got Seth
He,
there, which was a
he,
great
did,
pickup for them, by the way.
he didn't want his actual son, but he wanted his son-in-law.
Yeah.
Did you hear that
Yeah.
story?
No.
Apparently, Doc Rivers told Maury not to sign Austin Rivers. They were like trying to or something. Like, he said it wasn't like malicious or anything. He just like didn't want to have to deal with that issue.
Yeah, well, also Austin Rivers is overrated, man. I don't think Austin Rivers is a good player. Seth Curry that was a great trade for them, I think, because you have good defense. Like your top two players, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, are really, really good defenders, right? So like you don't need to have five amazing defenders at every position. You got Thibault there, who's a really good defender as well. Like you didn't need a starting lineup of like Ben Simmons, Josh Richardson, Matisse Thibault. Tobias Harris is kind of at the four, but like it was like they had good defenders, but they didn't have the spacing. They needed a better balance of spacing and defense, and so that trade of Josh Richardson for Seth Curry, I think, was one of the most underrated moves of this offseason because Seth Curry fits perfectly. He's kind of an undersized two guard. He's a two guard in a point guard's body, but you got a point guard in like a power forward's body with Ben Simmons. So defensively, it works out. And Seth Curry is an underrated defender. We saw him like step up on defense during the playoffs when he was here in Portland, and like making. I forget which game it was specifically, but I remember him making a key steal against Paul George. I think that was game 5, wasn't it? Was that game 5? You know which play I'm talking about? Chat, you guys know which play I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think it was part of that comeback.
Yeah, just a phenomenal steal on Paul George. He had some defensive highlights. He's an underrated defender. I feel like people just assume, okay, he's a 3-point sniper, he's a Curry, he's undersized two guard, so he's automatically a bad defender. But I feel like he's underrated on that end. Like he's a decent defender. And then that 3-point shooting next to Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid is the type of spacing they needed. So I actually really love that trade for him. Now you got Doc Rivers paired with Seth Curry, which is a good dynamic compared to Paul George and Doc Rivers, which was obviously a very bad dynamic.
Yep. And then so the other story is Harden's AWOL from the Rockets. Apparently, Saturday night he was at a party in Atlanta at a strip club. And then last night, he was seen at a dance club in Las Vegas partying it up. Yeah. And refusing to. They actually called it a holdout. Silas, their head coach, said that. But yeah.
Let me just say this. Yeah, like in regards to James Harden, thank God we have Dame. You know what I mean? Like, imagine if Dame was doing that. Yeah. Even if we weren't in a pandemic, it'd be a bad look. The fact that we're in a pandemic makes it an even worse look what he's doing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That just says to me he doesn't really care. He doesn't really care enough. I know the season just ended, so he didn't have a long enough off season to get his fix in, if you know what I mean, because he's notorious for he's notorious for that type of thing. But man, you're talking about training camps already started, and he's not there. He wanted to trade. Like, here's the thing. I wonder if he had been traded to Brooklyn, would he be there? Yeah. So this is like a sort of dynamic where, okay, he doesn't want to be in Houston. He would have probably reported to Brooklyn by now, like by the very start of training camp, but he doesn't really want to be in Houston, and he's let that be known, and now his actions are showing like kind of disrespect towards the organization, even kind of the NBA, considering the situation everyone is in, and how, you know, a lot of players are already making sacrifices, or they're going to have to make sacrifices in terms of things they want to do compared to things they have to do in order to get this season in. And he doesn't care about that. He's basically telling the organization with his actions, I don't care, I'm gonna do what I want. And that's not a good look from your leader, right? If it's a role player, right, you fine them, you suspend them, you're not hurt, whatever, hopefully they'll fall in line. If that's your leader doing that, your friend, it's just completely dysfunctional, right? I don't know how you can go into the season with James Harden as the leader doing what he's doing and just showing the discontent, showing the I'm blanking on the word, but just showing the disrespect he's showing towards the organization by not showing up, and then also like going and doing what he's doing. I don't know how you go into the season with that guy as your leader in the locker room and think it's going to work out. They gotta trade him. That's basically my takeaway from this. They have to trade him.
And they, of course, probably won't get equal value for him. But this is reason number like 9,732 why. Thank you, Damian Lillard, for being the person you are and being the upstanding, both role model, leader, player, all that stuff. We're so lucky to have a guy like Dame. And like this is, I don't know. I'd hate to be like, if you're a Houston fan and your best player isn't even showing up to training camp, like, and is more concerned about going to parties and stuff like that, like, how could you root for that team or like think very highly of it? You know, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I know, like, I don't know. Here's the thing. Like, I agree with you on everything with Dame, but like, bro, like 95%, maybe even higher, 95% of the leaders in this league, probably 29 out of the 30 leaders in this league would not be doing what he's doing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even the people that are like questionable character, like Kyrie ain't doing that. You know, like KD ain't doing that. LeBron ain't doing that. Dame ain't, like, James Harden is the only one doing that. And I feel like, I don't know, man. James Harden, he doesn't seem like a good leader at all. You hear about all the issues that came out last season with them.
Well, the season before too with Chris Paul, and that's the reason they traded him. Like, you know, they were a game away from possibly winning it all the year before, and then they're all over each other all season, can't get along, and they end up trading Chris Paul, and then he doesn't get along with Westbrook, they're supposedly supposed to be friends, and they were going to work it out just because they like each other, you know, they're all their basketball non-fitting ways, but yeah, it's just, yeah, I'm so glad. I mean, like, when you have Dame already, I wouldn't be like upset if we traded for a guy like that, but like, I'm just glad he's not our main guy. You know,
it's just like, yeah, imagine if we had traded for him this offseason and he was pulling that right now. Like, what would Dame say? How would that go over? You know what I mean? Because like, James Harden is not the type to like let anybody say anything to him. You know, he's a top 10 player, but Dame is not the type to let that slide as well. That would be interesting. That would be just an interesting case study just to see what would happen in that situation, you know? Obviously, we probably wouldn't know, and I don't know. Like, that makes me curious as to, like, how Dame would handle, like, another star player that had issues like that.
Yeah. The only thing I like about this whole situation is definitely going to take Houston out of the equation, at least for being like a home court advantage team, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think they're good enough to survive with all these other issues. And there's too many good teams in the West for teams to like have these kind of problems already. But the weird part to me is the NBA Saturday morning comes out with these like super strict protocols, a new like I forgot how many pages what it was, but it was like a huge book of stuff, and it talks about heavy fines and possibly suspensions for players violating any of the protocols. And then, like a few hours later, here's Harden out doing this stuff, and then not reporting 140 pages. My mom says, and yeah,
Kyle says Dame would get some of his boys from Oakland to help discipline Harden. But yeah, so man, let's just have this conversation right now, right? When you talk about the best players in the league, do you take into account leadership?
You should. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, if you take into account leadership and then you take into account how like Harden's game really does not work in the playoffs, I think you could easily make the case that Dame is a better player than him if you take those things into account. Obviously, like Harden has insane stats, but he hasn't accomplished anything as the number one that Dame hasn't. He hasn't led his team, like his team hasn't really been any better than Dame's. I mean, he got one game away from an NBA Finals, and Dame got swept in the finals. But Dame's struggles in the playoffs are less of a product of Dame. Honestly, his struggles are overblown, and they're less of a product of him. It's more of a product of kind of how he's used and us not being able to figure out the trap schematically, and then Dame having to deal with just getting completely hounded by double teams all game long in the playoffs. So I don't know, man. I think you could easily make the case that Dame is higher than him if you take into account the leadership, because both guys are going to be number one players on their team, but Harden as your number one, the leadership isn't there unless you have like a strong leader as a number two. And for all the hate that like Chris Paul gets, he's supposedly a really good leader in the locker room, right? So I feel like that's kind of how they were able to coexist. But you bring in a guy like Westbrook who's maybe not as good of a leader, and you have all these problems pop up. There's not many number two guys that can lead a locker room quite like Chris Paul, right? So if you're talking about number one James Harden, who can't lead and whose game doesn't translate well to the playoffs, he's not that good of a number one if you take into account the leadership aspect of it and how he plays in the playoffs. I think he's just seeing what happened last year, seeing all the issues that came out, seeing what he's doing now. It's just making me think like he's overrated, not necessarily for his play on the court. A little bit of it is, his game in the playoffs struggles, but also because of the leadership aspect, and you can't contend without a leader, in my opinion. You look at the Clippers, they didn't really have a leader, and look what happened. They completely fell apart, right? You look at the two teams that made the finals. LeBron, really good leader. Jimmy Butler, for all the hate that was talked about him, I think he's a really good leader. It was more of he didn't want to put up with Andrew Wiggins, Karl Anthony Towns, and their issues, right? Those two guys, really good leaders, right? The only way you can like contend without having like a true leader is if you have no problems in the locker room. You cannot have your number one not be a leader and then cause a bunch of problems and then not have like a Chris Paul type there to like help overcome that, right? So I don't know. I think he's overrated. I'm not putting him above Dame in terms of like talent. If you're evaluating talent from, okay, can this guy help us win a championship as the number one? Dame is a better number one than James Harden, in my opinion, because leadership matters, and you got to have a functional locker room and good leadership in order to truly contend. And that's not happening with James Harden as number one.
Yeah, I had one of my most active days on Twitter ever. but
your fingers tired?
I was tweeting up a storm today, but I got one of my many arguments today was with the stupid. Oh, it was actually the goated one, if you know who that is.
Yes. Yeah.
So I got into it with him because he posted this thing saying Curry has Clay, Lillard has McCollum, Mitchell has Gobert, Embiid has Simmons, Luka has Kristaps, Giannis has Middleton, Kawhi has Paul George, LeBron has Anthony Davis, Durant has Kyrie, Harden has, and then he posted a video of Russell Westbrook doing stupid things. Um, so I tweeted, there's only one player on that list that hasn't been an all-star. And meanwhile, the player you mentioned not having anyone has had Dwight Howard, Chris Paul, and Russell Westbrook, who have all been multiple-time all-stars. So,
Yeah.
And some of the like best players over the last 20 years or so. Like to put Dame on the level with all those other people when the person he listed is the only person, CJ, on that entire list of players I named off. There was what 20 names,
Yeah.
and CJ has not made an All-Star game, so you can't put CJ with Dame as the rest of those guys on that list, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, that's a great point too, man. Like that's funny. Eric, I saw a couple of your tweets, and you were on top of it today. You were peaking today. Yeah. I mean, bro, here's the thing: is like those same people that are like Harden has Westbrook and shows the videos of Westbrook doing stupid stuff, tweets like that. A year ago, they were saying, "Oh, Harden has a former MVP. We're gonna win it all."
Yep.
Right. And then once he leaves, then they're trashing him. You know what I mean? It's selective. It's selective bias.
Oh yeah, that's Beavis reminded me. So Beavis got into it with Chad doing this morning.
Did he?
Yeah. So Chad posted this thing like, give me like one reason why people are head over heels over Melo re-signing and like why everyone's so happy about it and all this stuff. Which, like, I kind of get his point that there are, like, it's not, like, the best thing ever. But, like, people were saying, like, dude, the guy averaged, like, 15 and 7. It's not like he's, like, a Mario Hezonja type or whatever. And he's like, I just don't see anything he does well and all this stuff. And then him and Beavis got into it a bunch. And so that's what started my tweeting for the day. And then I got into other stuff. Yeah.
Bro, like... Part of me doesn't disagree, though.
Yeah, but...
That's the thing, which is weird, bro, because trust me, I want to be like, Chad's a Chad, and doesn't know what he's talking about, but, like, yeah, I mean, I don't see how you don't understand why people were excited. Like, I might not be, like, super excited myself, but I'm not against it. I'm not against our minimum contract at all. I'm not thrilled, but I'm somewhat happy they re-signed him for a minimum contract. But like, even if you're not thrilled, I don't know how you can't understand why other people would be thrilled, because I can understand why other people would be thrilled, right? It's Carmelo Anthony, a legend. He had some phenomenal performances last year. He hit some big time buckets. Like, there's a lot of reasons why people could be thrilled with this. So that's the thing. It's just like, here's what boggles me about media. Here's another media rant for you guys. It's pretty common, but it's like they somehow can't understand why people might have a different perspective than them. Mm-hmm. Like, I can disagree with somebody, but understand why they think what they think. Right? I can kind of understand why some people like Terry Stotts as a coach, even though I'm not a big fan of Terry Stotts as a coach, right? But like, when it comes to these media guys, if somebody's opinion doesn't exactly align with theirs, they have no idea how somebody could think differently than them. And it's kind of conceited in a way. It just boggles my mind, man. Like, how do you not understand why people would be thrilled? You don't have to agree with it to understand it. That's something that I've noticed. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, so I put not necessarily head over heels, but I do think it's a good thing when someone of Melo's stature was willing to sign with Portland for the minimum and to come off the bench in a reduced role. He's so much better than the recent Stauskas, Tolliver, Hezonja signings. So we're comparing him, coming off the bench instead of like the recent signings we've had. I mean, this is like a home run compared to those guys putting Melo in the game instead of Mario Hezonja,
Yeah.
And then I put, even if Melo's inefficient, he still commands more attention from a defense than just about any other player Dame and CJ have had since Aldridge left. Probably even more than Nurk. I'm not saying he should, but he still gets that respect. Now it's a matter of using him correctly. And so Chad quote tweeted me, so intangibles. Like, I didn't say intangibles. Like, that's so stupid. But whatever.
Yeah, he should have said so context, because you just provided a bunch of context that he ignores. He can't fully understand like proper context in a ton of situations. So that proves it. That reply proves it. He can't even understand context. He's getting proper context confused for you saying intangibles. You know what I mean? As if like. And the thing is, you weren't talking about intangibles. You were just providing a good amount of context, proper context. But he acts like, even if you were talking about intangibles, that reply is like acting like intangibles don't matter at all.
Right.
Which they do. Intangibles matter too. You weren't talking about intangibles, but downplaying intangibles is like the casual thing to do on Twitter, and things that a lot of people do. Here's the thing with Twitter that pisses me off with like the media and with people on Twitter. They don't provide proper context, or they ignore proper context unless it benefits their argument, or I forgot the second part of it, but go ahead.
Well, like, whether you think this is true or not, I mean, this isn't the only reason. Obviously, Dame's like a super good player, and he's been good before Melo, and he'll be good after Melo. But, like, Melo is part of the reason why offensively Dame had his most efficient season of his career last year, because he does make the defense have to game plan for him specifically. We saw some games where Melo was like 1 for 10 and he was still getting doubled in the post and stuff like that when he touched the ball. Like, teams have to actually game plan and talk about Melo in their lineups and stuff. And so that leaves, you put Melo in the corner, and that's another thing I told Chad. So I responded by saying, it's not just intangibles. He shot the 3 well last year, which he did. It wasn't like plus 40%, but it was good. He can still get buckets sometimes. Something the Blazers haven't really had as a go-to off the bench. And then he's a decent rebounder as well. So like, it's not like he's completely worthless out on the floor, like Chad's trying to imply. But like, Dame does, when he's shooting the three well and he's spotting up for 3, it does make the defense not able to sag as much off of him, and which opens up driving lanes for Dame. And I mean, it's not. It's hard to quantify that. Like, so yeah, if you want to call it intangibles or whatever, but that's not an intangible. That's like something that's actually happening on the court. An intangible would be like, oh, he's a good mentor for the guys in the locker room or whatever, which he seems by all accounts to be as well.
Yeah. Having a vet mentor like that, he's a mentor, I feel like, off the court as well, for all the hate that he got about like his personality and being selfish and stuff. I haven't seen that in Portland, and it seems like either it's probably a combination of these things. The media overblew certain situations and like kind of portrayed Melo in an inaccurate way, and or Melo matured. And I think the maturation process shows with him, being willing to take a bench role, which in a bench role, I'm fine with it. I honestly, like, if he takes a little step back from last season, Melo fans are going to absolutely hate this. He might not deserve to be in the rotation when you get a guy like Collins back who could be the backup 4, and you got Canner/Giles the backup 5. We have a ton of depth in the front court. So if he takes a step back in terms of like his 3-point shooting, and his mid-range stuff isn't working and that type of thing, and his defense kind of regresses from the bubble back to what it was before the bubble, then he probably doesn't necessarily deserve to be on the court. So if that happens, it'll be interesting to see, are the Blazers willing to actually like do what's best for the team and play like, and not play Melo down the stretch of the season, or is guarding his legacy that important? And you know what I mean? Like, it'll be interesting to see that dynamic. I hope Melo plays well, because here's the thing. Coming off the bench, if he's struggling, I feel like you could kind of tell early on whether Melo was going to have a good game or a bad game. If he's struggling, you don't have to play him a ton. right? If he's hot and playing well, then you can play him more, right? Compared to last season where we had to play him regardless if he was 1 for 10 because what was the other option? Mario freaking Hazonia. Thank goodness I won't have to say that name hardly at all this year, right? I won't have to cringe every time I hear that name because he's no longer a Blazer. Sorry, Mario. Good. You seem like a good dude, but you were very frustrating last season. Here's the thing. His efficiency will be better if he is taking more shots on efficient nights and not taking many shots on nights where he's struggling, right? So if you play him more when he's playing well and you play him less when he's struggling, he's going to have a better impact on this team. In that situation, whereas last year it was like you had to ride with him no matter if he was having a good game or a horrible game. So that's kind of my hope is like, okay, if he's like kind of hurting the team, he won't play much, so it won't really hurt the team in that game. Like it won't, cause big issues in that game and we can easily overcome it. Or he'll be hot and he'll get the minutes to really make an impact and really help the team win. And then in clutch time situations, he showed that he was clutch, super, super clutch on catch and shoot threes. So, I'm expecting that to continue. He's always been clutch, and you got a clutch guy like Dame out there. You got a clutch guy like Melo as a spot-up shooter that's good down the stretch. I'm down with that, and if his defense kind of remains what it was in the bubble, he was a meh defender, which we were raving about his defense because him being meh on defense was a lot better than what it was before the bubble because he was horrible defensively until the bubble. He lost that weight. It made him a lot better defensively because he was quicker. He had more energy. He, was able to hustle more. He was far better defensively after losing that weight. So, and he still looks like he's skinny Melo. So, and maybe the braids help him, I don't know. But yeah, so like I'm somewhat optimistic. Like I think there's, hopefully he doesn't take a step back due to age. I think he will help the team at certain points this year. 100%.
Yeah, I was going to say that it was nice to see him coming into training camp looking like he did in the bubble because it shows that he didn't just, go back to his old ways once the season was over. It seems like he had to have worked hard to keep that weight off because he's one of those guys who, like, he's been in great basketball shape his entire life, but it's never really looked like he's in full shape, kind of like Zach Randolph too. Like, it's like, even if you're at your peak performance level, it still seems like you're a little overweight or pudgy. But it was nice to see him come in looking. I mean, he might even look skinnier than he did in the bubble, which is pretty cool to see. So.
Shervin says Melo is not even that old. He's 36. He's going to be 37 before the end of the season. That is old in NBA terms. In like real life terms, that's not old. I mean, Eric's 41. I don't think he's old, but if Eric was in the NBA, he'd be elderly, basically. He'd be a senior citizen in the NBA. So that's the thing. Like, yeah, Melo at 36, like in life terms, he's not old at all. But in NBA terms, he is up there in age. And players usually at this age decline. He's going to be 37 before the end of the season. So that is something to look out for to see if he potentially declines. The biggest worry is that his three-point shooting will kind of regress back to... Honestly, he shot better from three last year than he's done for the majority of his career. So if he regresses back to kind of the 35% he was shooting earlier on in his career, it's going to be more iffy in terms of how many minutes he should be getting.
Well, to be fair, though, he didn't really have both the guys who could get him good looks in New York or the type of players around him that took some of the pressure off him on offense. So, like, he was like the Dame spot on New York. So, a guy like that who's like one of the better scorers in the history of the NBA to all of a sudden just have to knock down open threes, I think I like that. I don't think that that'll necessarily regress, but yeah, I mean, it is something to monitor throughout the year. Obviously, if he's down around 35% on threes, getting the kind of looks he should be getting, then that's not ideal. But
yeah, because like Collins could shoot. Yeah, Collins could shoot 35% for us, and he provides more on the defensive end and a little bit more on the boards. So if Melo isn't shooting like 37, 38%, it becomes an argument like Collins versus Melo. Because here's the thing. At some point this season, there is going to be a big debate on in terms of who should not play regularly. If Giles looks good, it's going to be extremely interesting once Collins comes back, because you're looking at guys that pretty much only play the 4 and the 5. You're talking about 6 guys that could potentially be deserving of rotation minutes. You're talking about Covington at the 4, Nurkic at the 5 in the starting lineup, and then off the bench you got Collins, Giles, Cantor, Melo. There's not enough minutes to go around. So there's going to come a point where it's like, okay, who's deserving of minutes? Granted, with how jam-packed the schedule is, there's going to be rest nights for Melo on back-to-backs where, that won't be a debate. And then honestly, for like a guy like Giles, who has kind of had injury concerns, like I think they should, have rest nights for him as well. And maybe with Collins, because Collins has been a little bit injury prone, you have rest nights with them. Maybe it becomes a situation where like pretty much every game you have one of Cantor, Melo, even Nurkic, maybe Collins, Giles, you have one of them having a rest night. That's why I love our depth this season, because we're prepared. We can rest guys and not have much of a drop off. So that's the thing, is like maybe that's how they sort out the minutes once all those guys are back. Because I can't imagine if you're trying to play all 6 of those guys, you can't play all 6 of those guys in one game and have the minutes to go around. The only way that can happen is if like Nurkic only plays 12 minutes because he has foul trouble, and like Collins might get into foul trouble, and then that's the thing. If we deal with foul trouble, we'll have the depth to basically overcome that, and it won't be as big of an issue as seasons past. But they're gonna have to rest guys in order to get guys proper minutes when they do play. Otherwise, it's like, what's the point? Playing Melo 8 minutes a game, Collins 8 minutes a game, Giles 8 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, it would have to be something like minimal, which just doesn't make sense because guys can't build a rhythm, and it's just messy. So that is my question. Is how they sort that out once Collins is healthy, and hopefully everybody else will still be healthy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, because if we're playing really well, I could see Collins being the first one not to get minutes. If we're kind of struggling in some areas, or the bench needs to be shored up, or the starting lineup isn't performing as well, I could see some changes once he gets back. Same with Hood. Hood, I think they're going to start him off the bench just to kind of bring him along slowly. But if he's playing like he played last year, especially with shooting the basketball, he could find his way back into the starting lineup rather quickly.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how each player is playing, and who takes advantage of their minutes early on.
Russell Westbrook says Collins isn't a future Hall of Famer like Melo. He needs to wait his turn. I don't know if that's like sarcasm.
He's
or
been
if
trolling a little bit. But.
Yeah, and here's the thing: people will say that and like mean it. And here's the thing: yes, Melo has legacy and whatnot. That's great and all. But in terms of who should play, it needs to be based on this season and this season alone. That's what it needs to be based on. What is best for this season? What maximizes the chance that the Blazers win a championship this season? Playing Melo, and if Collins is a better option in the lineup than Melo and helps us out more this season and helps us maximize our chances of winning a championship this season, then Melo shouldn't play over Collins just because Melo did stuff in years prior for other teams. That's my whole thing on that. But in terms of playing time, man, it's just crazy because Giles is like the 4th big off the bench, presumably, if everybody's healthy, if Collins is healthy, right? He's like presumably the 4th big off the bench. He has the type of talent and potential to be our best big off the bench. Like, in the pecking order right now, he's probably below Cantor, Collins, Melo, but like, he has the talent level. I wouldn't be shocked if he was a better option than all 3 of those guys. So that's the thing, is like, what if Giles just balls out? I guess you don't play Cantor then, and Giles is the backup center.
Yeah,
which,
I think that's where the minutes will come from.
Which I'd be down for that, because Giles is like a decent defender in his passing. We could have a good passing center on the floor 48 minutes a game. And then maybe you could start Rodney Hood in the starting lineup, and you could play Derrick Jones off the bench, and you could pair Giles passing with Derrick Jones Jr. as an off-ball cutter and a lob target, and that would be intriguing, But then it's like, okay, then it comes down to Cantor isn't playing, and then the 4 minutes. It's going to be Collins versus Melo. Collins versus Melo. And it's like, if we have enough offense off our bench without Melo and we need more defense, like, it just becomes an interesting debate, and it's just going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. The only thing I'd say about that is with both Giles and Collins' injury history now, and Nurkic to some degree, they might just justify that by saying, oh, the limited minutes are helping everyone, not just it's not like a slight against anybody. We're just trying to make sure you're getting game time, but not really getting in a situation where you're having to play heavy minutes and possibly getting hurt. So we have the best possible lineup at the end of the season. That'll work if we're winning, I think. I'm pretty sure most of the guys on the team will accept that role if we're doing well. If we start to struggle or go on a losing streak, though, there could be a lot of tension there between people not playing and stuff and deserving more minutes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting early on because our first 6 games is when we'll get a good feel for that, and they're against, like, 4 playoff teams if you think Golden State misses it. It's against 6 playoff teams if you think Golden State is a playoff team, which they're like a fringe playoff team. They're still going to be a good team. So you're playing 6 good teams right off the bat, right? So it'll be interesting to see like how this team gels right off the bat and plays against those 6 teams after those first 6 games. Because I did my schedule breakdown.
Yeah, it was a good breakdown, by the way.
Dude, the schedule is so easy after those 6 games. So I'm just hoping we have a strong start during those first 6 games, because after that, the schedule is so soft for the rest of January. So soft. So that's the thing is like, it might be easier to figure things out if, like, okay, you're playing soft teams at the start where you can kind of toy with some stuff, and then, like, you can kind of figure out what you want to do by the time you play a harder stretch of schedule. But we don't have that. It's the opposite. We got hard games right off the bat that we're going to have to try and figure things out minutes-wise, and then we'll have the stretch of easy games where we can probably toy around with minutes, rest guys, and still pick up wins. So, yeah, I'm excited, man. It's crazy because season starts in basically 2 weeks, which is insane. It's like 16 days, so yeah, I mean, we're almost there. I
hope we get the 4 preseason games. It's going to be... I think we'll know more over the next couple days whether we're playing Friday or not. But
we do need to talk about the number 7 debate real quick. I don't want to forget about that since we were talking about Melo. Here's what I think. Okay, I've been against anybody wearing number 7. I grew up on Brandon Roy. He made me fall in love with the Portland Trail Blazers, right? Like I was 10 years. I was 10 years old when he got drafted. I still remember that draft, watching that draft when I was 10 years old, right? I actually remember watching Brandon Roy in college when I was like 8, 9 years old, because I watched a lot of Washington Huskies college basketball when I was a kid. I was a sports nut as a kid growing up. But like, so I remember my earliest memories of watching basketball. I remember watching Adam Morrison at Gonzaga and Brandon Roy at Washington. Because I honestly, when I was like 8, 9 years old, I watched more college basketball than I did NBA. The Blazers sucked, so I wasn't really a big fan of them. Then Brandon Roy goes from Washington to the Blazers, and I was like, okay, I gotta start watching them more. And it made me fall in love with the Portland Trail Blazers, watching the way Brandon Roy played for them and growing up on Brandon Roy. Like, it's such a nostalgic thing, and he helped the franchise transition from the Jail Blazer era. And then when that was kind of ending, they were a terrible team, and he took that and turned it into a team that was making the playoffs, right? Now, they never won a first-round series, but that's not because of Brandon Roy. That's not because of his talent, That's because his knees quit on him. That's because Greg Oden's knees quit on him. That team would have been... If Brandon Roy remained healthy, if Greg Oden remained healthy, that team would have won a championship. You know what I mean? There would be no doubt in my mind that Brandon Roy would have his number retired if his knees never quit on him. 100%. His number would be retired here, right? And he had some really good seasons for us. So given like kind of what he did in terms of transitioning us from a Jailblazer era and then an era of terrible basketball into a team with good character guys, competitive, should have been potentially a dynasty. And then like some of the seasons he put up and the fact that he would have been like maybe the best Blazer of all time if he never got hurt, we likely wouldn't have gotten Dame. For all those reasons, I think it makes sense to retire his number. I know we have a ton of numbers retired, but like it makes so much sense to retire his number. Nobody's worn it since him. Like it's synonymous with Brandon Roy. Number 7 in Portland is synonymous with Brandon Roy. Like, it'd be weird to watch to see anybody else wearing that number. So I think it needs to be retired. But given what Brandon Roy said today about Melo wearing it, saying he'd be honored if Melo wore it and he'd be, happy if Melo wore it, and Melo wants to wear it, I think Melo can wear number 7. Then after Melo leaves, then you retire it for Brandon Roy. And you have the best of both, right? Melo can have his number 7. Melo has had legendary seasons in the number 7. He wants to wear the number 7. Brandon Roy's cool with him wearing number 7. Let Melo wear number 7 just because he's a legend and he wants to wear it. And then afterwards, then retire it for Roy. That's what I think they should do.
Yeah. I don't necessarily disagree with anything you said. I really wish they had like a Ring of Honor or a Blazers Hall of Fame, so they could have put all these like fringe players into that and then save the retirement for only special players and the truly worthy ones, because we have way too many retired numbers, and so it's frustrating because I see guys like Jerome Kersey and Cliff Robinson and you could talk about the 2000s team. So you got like Damon Stoudemire and Rasheed Wallace, and those guys probably won't get their number retired because they just, I don't know, some of those, they bring up bad memories or, jailblazers and stuff like that. But I just wish we had like a way to honor all these really good Blazers players without necessarily retiring their number. Roy is a special circumstance. I do kind of feel like he deserves to have his number retired. But like at the same time, I'm still like worried about all the numbers retiring. But before he came out and said it, which once he said it, now I think Melo should wear number 7. But to me, it was like, why can't Melo just wear it and you could still retire it for Roy? I mean, other Blazers have worn it prior to Roy. If they're not going to retire it, either retire it now and do something with Brandon Roy and retire it so no one wears it, or let someone wear it. Like, I don't know what they're waiting for to retire Brandon's number if that's what they're waiting for. So, yeah, I just wish they would have just either retired it already if that's what they were going to do, or not retire it,
Yeah. Sorry if anybody's deaf after that. I was looking up a list of retired numbers because I just wanted to go over it, and an ad played and it was pretty loud, so apologies.
Yeah, I didn't hear it.
Thomas Zarinsky says, I'm awake. Yeah, it made me jump too. I'm just keeping you guys on your toes. Yeah, I hate websites that play random ads. So I just wanted to look up. So you got number 13 retired for Dave. I don't even remember how to say his last name. Twardzik. Number 14 retired for Lionel Hollins. Number 15 retired for Larry Steele. Number 20 for the great Maurice Lucas. Number 22 for Clyde. Number 30 for both Bob Gross and Terry Porter. Number 32 for Bill Walton. Number 36 for Lloyd Neal. Number 45 for Jeff Petrie. And number 77 for Jack Ramsey. Nobody usually wears 77. So, if you don't want to count number 77, we only have 9 numbers retired.
MC Depth was like, why didn't Melo wear 77? I was like, dude, that's retired too.
Yeah. Like, if we retired 7 and then 0 gets retired, that's 11 numbers between like 0 and 45. I feel like people kind of over exaggerate how many numbers we have retired, I guess.
But then, you get to the point where it's like, okay, so Dame for sure will get his number retired, right? Yeah. Like, what do you do with Aldridge, who was here for 9 years?
No, he left. So I know nobody's... Has anybody worn it since Aldridge? I don't think anybody has.
Well, Roy left.
Yeah, but Roy left because of his knees. Aldridge left because he signed with another team in free agency. Completely different things. Like, Aldridge should not have his number retired here. I mean,
CJ's been here 7 years now. Like, if Nurk keeps going and develops and stays here a long time, like... this is the problem. It's not necessarily that we only have like 11 numbers retired now, but like if you keep retiring numbers, eventually, there's deserving people every, generation or decade or whatever. And then by the time it's like 20, 30 years from now, we'll have like 20 numbers retired and stuff. But yeah, I'm not saying Roy shouldn't have his number
Yeah.
retired. I
I
just
mean,
this kind of brings about the flaws of retiring some kind of. I mean, I don't want to say they don't deserve it because they were big parts of Blazer history, but they're probably not at the level that most franchises would think are deserving of a retired number.
yeah, well, like, let them deal with that problem 30, 40 years from now. Maybe by then, like, a guy like, I don't know, Lloyd Neal, you know what I mean? Like, maybe they'll unretire his number because they're so far removed from him and he didn't, like, he was a good player, but I'm just reading his line here. It says Neal played 7 seasons for the Blazers. He averaged 11 points per game and 7.7 rebounds per game. And he had his number retired. You know what I mean? So like by that standard, 100% you have McCollum's jersey retired. 100% you'd probably have Nurkic's jersey retired, assuming he stays here for many more years. So maybe by like 2035, 2040, if it's legitimately like a problem, maybe you unretire a guy like Lloyd Neal's number. But the thing is, like a lot of the numbers, like we have 4 numbers retired that are like 30, 32, 36, 45. Players aren't really, normally trying to wear those numbers. We have no numbers retired that are 0 through 12, which is generally like the numbers players like the most, if that makes sense. So I don't know, like a lot of numbers we have are just kind of like random higher numbers and random numbers that players don't wear as often compared to like a 1 or a 4 or a whatnot. So here's the thing, like I think Roy should have his jersey retired. I think it makes more sense to retire his jersey than like some of the players up there. And if it becomes a problem in the future, then maybe you unretire guys like a Lloyd Neal, and you unretire his number 36. Or maybe you unretire.
It just sounds so disrespectful. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but like,
yeah. That's the thing. It's like hopefully it's like by then you're so far removed from when they played. And then you like have a Ring of Honor by then, and you basically put those guys in the Ring of Honor and unretire their number for use, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If it becomes like a legitimate problem, I don't think you should be hesitant to retire Brandon Roy's number because you already have a lot of numbers retired. I don't think it causes an issue right now.
Yeah, I think it should probably be, I mean, like Lucas, Drexler, Porter, Walton. And like, I mean, why is Ramsey's number retired? You could have just like put him up there in the rafters. You didn't have to retire a number for him, or do like his amount of wins or something he had as a Blazer, so it doesn't take up a number.
Granted, nobody wears 77 anyway, so it's fine.
Maybe Petrie I'd add to there, but other than that, that's pretty much all. Yeah, I said Walton. But yeah, I said Maurice Lucas, not Luca. But yeah, so it's just tough for me. Like I said, I wish, because like if you're gonna retire all those guys, there's no reason why Jerome Kersey and Cliff Robinson and Buck Williams, Rasheed Wallace, Damon Stoudemire, Arvidas maybe, like all those guys should be retired if you're basing it on the credentials that some of those other guys are retired for. So it's just like hearing people like, oh, we have too many retired numbers, we have not. Bro, just look at the Boston Celtics, right? Here's the numbers they have retired: 00, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 6, number 10, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. All those numbers are retired, right? Yeah.
That's how many. Let me like count how many that is.
They're all probably worthy.
Yeah.
I mean, we retired a lot of those numbers just because they were part of a championship team. I can't imagine, like another team, like the Lakers this last year retiring Alex Caruso because he played 5 years and averaged like 8 points a game. Like.
yeah, exactly. But they have 22 numbers retired, and they're still able to like get people jerseys numbers, and it's like not an issue right now, right? So it's like we are 13 retired numbers away from that. I don't think it's like as big of a deal as people make it out to be here, if that makes sense. Like you can't remain as loose with the credentials and retire like every Lloyd Neal that comes along. If we win a championship, you probably, I don't know, it's probably not a good idea to retire like the top 7 players' numbers. You know what I mean? But I feel like people overblow like, oh, we have so many numbers retired, when it's like, you look at the Celtics, they're fine at 22 right now, and we're at 9. So I don't think you should hesitate to retire the number 7 for that reason. Maybe in the future. I understand people's argument that like, oh, he didn't accomplish enough to have it retired, but he is a special case with like all the factors that I laid out when I started this conversation. He is a special case. So I think you let Melo wear it and then you retire it for Roy, and I think that is how it should be done.
GK is talking about another team, not the Blazers, with number 1.
There was some list that said number 1 was retired, but I don't understand that because Ant wears it, so it's people still use number 1. So I did see that on a couple of websites saying we had number 1 retired.
Okay.
So I don't know if he's referencing that, but yeah. So retire Hazonia. What number did Hazonia wear? 44.
Something like that. And Toller was what, 43?
43, 44. Yeah. So you think Melo should wear it? Do you think they should retire it for Roy after that?
Well, I mean, obviously the trades just happened, so like I don't see why Melo couldn't change numbers, but usually there's like a certain date in a normal season where you can't change your number because Nike or whatever jersey sponsor would have already started making jerseys for the season. But as long as Nike's cool with it and the NBA's cool with it, I absolutely think he should. He should be number 7. I don't mind that at all.
Yep. So let's talk preseason opener, and then take a couple questions and wrap up the stream. Right. So preseason opener. Hopefully it happens. I did, outline kind of the situation the Blazers were in the video that I dropped last night. Today they did open up the practice facility again, but only for workouts, not for what they originally planned, which was full training camp, right? So, so there's still like distance and whatnot. One player tested positive, all right? So I don't know if that's good news or bad news. There's 3 people that tested positive. One of them was a player, right? I assumed that at least one of them was going to be a player, so I guess I'm glad that it's not more. But I'm curious who it is.
Well, the fact that we haven't seen Nas anywhere around the practice facility leads me to believe it's maybe him. I have done
Nas, get off Tinder, man.
I've done some investigative work.
Oh, yeah?
It has to be one of these 6 players. Nas, CJ Ellaby, Blevins.
I saw CJ Ellaby at the training facility today, though, I thought.
There was a picture of him a couple days ago prior to the announcement.
Okay.
But if someone has a picture, I can eliminate him from this, and I will eliminate people as we do it, since our media can't even find out. So,
and if there's a game on the 11th, we should be able to know just by like who's not on the bench, who's not here. But so what's the list? You said Nas, CJ Ellaby.
So Risa CJ was there, but
was that picture old or was it from today? That's the
yes.
question with that,
I will erase him from the list. So it's probably not him if he was there, whatever. But it's one of Nas, Blevins, Gary Trent, Anthony Simons, and Robert Covington. Those are the only people. Oh, wait, actually, I can remove Robert Covington because he was on Instagram yesterday doing some stuff driving around Portland. So if he was the one that had it, I doubt he would have been doing that. So it's either Blevins, Nas, Trent, or Ant.
That's the thing with Blevins, though, is we haven't seen anything in regards to him even signing, It's so confusing. Oh, so I also saw this. Jalen Horde is in Oklahoma City's training camp, so he ain't coming back. I saw a picture of him, and it wasn't even announced anywhere. I don't remember that he was going to be in their training camp. I just saw a picture and he's there. Do you see that picture?
Of what?
Jalen Horde is a part of Oklahoma City's training camp.
Are you serious?
Yeah. There was a picture of them like their first day of training camp, and Jalen Horde is there in a Thunder practice
I know
jersey.
Moses Brown signed with them, but I did not see Jalen Horde.
I saw Jalen Horde. So
You
which
sure it
bums
wasn't
me
someone
out.
else?
I mean, let me try and find the picture for you. I guess. Can anybody link that picture? Oh, you can't post a link. You could send it to me.
Well, the thing is, because Tommy always does this.
Wait. Oh, Keith Smith reported this earlier this morning. Over the weekend, the Oklahoma City Thunder signed and subsequently waived Jalen Horde.
Oh, okay.
Why'd they sign him and then waive him?
Well, yeah, I don't know why they waive him, but a lot of guys are on training camp invites, which is stupid because
Including LiAngelo Ball is on an Exhibit 10 contract. There's now a player in the NBA that's worse than me. Let's go.
I thought he signed an actual contract.
No, it's an Exhibit 10. So he's going to be in the G League. Yeah, like he ain't making that team. You know what I mean?
No,
For those of you who don't...
the Exhibit 10s don't work this year because the G League's in a bubble. I don't think you can...
Well, they can convert it to a two-way contract or convert it to a G League contract.
Yeah.
So I think it's highly likely they convert it to a G League contract. Because he's not good enough to be on an NBA roster, man. I know his brothers are good. That doesn't mean he's good. Like, I jokefully, trash him, right? Like, I don't necessarily 100% I believe that I'm better than him, right? That's kind of a joke. Only kind of. I'm only going to give y'all that. It's only kind of a joke, right? He's not NBA caliber. He's just not. Like, I don't... People, if he wouldn't even be on an Exhibit 10 contract, in my opinion, if his last name wasn't Ball. If he wasn't one of the Ball brothers.
Mm-hmm.
That is my opinion. He was like a 3-star recruit in high school, barely played any college basketball, wasn't good when he played college basketball, went over to Lithuania and played in like a mediocre league. And now he's on an Exhibit 10 contract. Like, you wouldn't see that from just some random player, in my opinion. But especially with he got kicked out of college off a team that he wasn't playing on. It wasn't even a tournament caliber team that he couldn't get minutes for. It was like a pretty bad UCLA team. He couldn't even get minutes for them. And then he's stealing stuff in China and caused an international debacle, right? He would not be in the NBA if his last name wasn't Ball. That's just my opinion.
Block Boy would take LiAngelo over you.
Well, Block Boy has questionable opinions on Melo. So, yeah.
Yeah, so
bro, I have that face-up game. I can shoot like Melo, man. If I shoot 20% on isolation mid-range jumpers, would you then take me over LiAngelo? Would that make me good, bro?
I mean, yeah, he's not good in terms of NBA players. I don't know, but I mean,
he's not good in terms of rec league players.
People. I mean,
he would come off the bench for my rec league.
Tori and I have played against NBA level talent before. We're not saying that we're better than or we deserve to be in the NBA over someone. That's a completely different argument.
I blocked Peyton Pritchard before, so I'm obviously better than him.
Anyways, so yeah, Scal signed a G League contract today, so he's going to be playing in the G League, which I cannot believe. That's crazy to me, but
LiAngelo would get wrecked in our media bracket, Oscar. He would get wrecked, bro. Eric would put him on the ground with a hard foul. And yeah, he wouldn't want that. He would be scared to drive. Bro, I want to see. I mean, the one good thing about him potentially being in the NBA is we could see the first player that posts up from the 3-point line. That'd be kind of cool to see, just to see how that would work. But yeah, no, I don't know, man. There's a couple guys that I think are overrated that I over exaggerate for fun. Y'all should know what I mean. But I know some people take it seriously and be like, bro, you're not better than him. He's in the NBA and you're not. You're on YouTube and you're just you played in college and you averaged 2.2 in a community college, bro. You're trash. There's people like that take it way too seriously. I'm just having fun with that. But I would have averaged 22.2 the next season. Let me just say that if I went back. decided not to. Should have went back and became the next LiAngelo Ball, right? But no.
Oh man, so Blockwell, you're a Jello fan too? That's disappointing.
He's a Jello and a Melo fan. Ugh. Ugh.
You just like cool
Ugh.
names or something.
Yeah, anything that ends with Elo, he likes, bro. So I assume you don't like Lonzo, but you like LaMelo and LiAngelo.
He probably doesn't like LaMelo because people are calling him Melo now, and he doesn't like that. Yeah.
Who's this guy think he is? He thinks he's Melo. He ain't Melo. There's a reason his name starts with an L and then it's Melo. But yeah, no. I've never been like on the hype train with the Ball brothers, man.
So someone asked how it's different with the Antetokounmpo brothers. Well, you're trying to catch like lightning in a bottle and find someone who's like half as good as Giannis is, and those guys are super athletic freaks like his brother. They just haven't put it together basketball wise. Whereas LiAngelo, in my opinion, doesn't have a lot of useful basketball skills. But yeah, I mean, you guys know our takes on LaMelo too, so we probably just think we're ball haters. But
I mean, we were right on Lonzo, though. Everybody was talking about how amazing Lonzo was going to be. He's the next Jason Kidd. Like, he's a solid player. Now it's like, bro, but he's a really good defender and averages 12 points per game and actually hits threes now. It's like, that's a lot lower standard than what you guys rolled Lonzo to when he got drafted, talking about him being the next Jason Kidd. He's a little better version of Ricky Rubio right now. And, yeah, I mean, he can still get better because he's young. I don't ever see him being an all-star. And people talking like he's going to be a Hall of Famer with Lonzo. So, and I said at the time, I don't think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. In that draft, I said Jason Tatum is the best player in this draft. He's better than Markelle Fultz, who I was a fan of because he went to Washington. Better than Lonzo. I was right on that. Right? I feel like, yeah, obviously I get some things in the draft wrong, but I feel like I nailed, sleepers and busts just as well as anybody else. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was that draft or if it was the year after, but I was really high on Shake Milton and DeAnthony Melton when they got drafted in the second round. Those two guys were steals. I was wrong on Gary Trent Jr. I thought it was a terrible thing to trade two future seconds for the draft rights to Gary Trent Jr. Obviously, I was wrong as hell. I mean, I hit some and I missed some, but I don't just speak off the wall with guys. Like, I genuinely believe that LaMelo is overhyped, that Lonzo is overhyped, that LiAngelo is overhyped. It's just because of that family. Like, and if they prove me wrong, cool. If LiAngelo freaking becomes Klay Thompson or something, like, dang, man, I could have been a better version of Klay Thompson. But, it proved me wrong. Go ahead.
Moving on to another one. Dylan Wolf asked this earlier. So, do you think Nasir's development will be hindered due to the amount of depth on the roster? That is a for sure. I mean, he's not going to get much playing time, if any, this year. So you can say, yeah, that might hinder his development, but he's in the second of a 4-year rookie deal. And I think he just needs to continue working hard. And if he does and shows that he's worthy of playing time, he should be in the rotation next year. If next year he's not in the rotation into his third year, then you have to start to question maybe whether or not, just sitting at the end of the bench is good for him and his development, and probably need to trade him at that point. But I don't think it'll hurt in his second year, basically redshirting him or whatever.
Yeah. It's just, okay, I'm also bring back up LiAngelo Ball, but it's kind of ridiculous to me that he's on an Exhibit 10 contract and Scal Labissiere is on a G League contract. Bro, Scal is so underrated, man. Mm-hmm. So Scal signed a G League contract today, and yeah, I think he should definitely be on an NBA team, like a legitimate NBA contract. It's kind of ridiculous that he is on a G League contract. Because he was good.
What's doing?
I don't.
Like, there's so many rebuilding. Like, I'd rather have him for the minimum and Wendy Gabriel than all the people Detroit signed for like centers and like. I just don't understand teams.
Yeah, it doesn't make a ton of sense. The Hawks traded for him, saying they were really high on him, and then let him walk for to the G League. It doesn't make sense. Feel kind of bad for Scal. But yeah, we'll take questions for the next 5 minutes and then we'll wrap up the stream. Shout out to everybody tuning in. These streams have been really good. Hopefully we'll be live over here on Friday with the post-game stream if that game happens. We'll have to wait and see on that. But we should get a pretty good feel in the next couple of days based on what the Blazers are doing at the practice facility. We should be able to get a pretty good feel for whether or not that game happens or is canceled. I think right now it's close to 50-50, but it's a little bit more likely that it does happen. Mm-hmm. I'd probably say like 60 to 65% chance it happens. Somewhere in there. Just a random speculative guess. But like we haven't seen this before in regards to the NBA, so I have no idea, Mid-season we should have a better feel of like, okay, what needs to happen for games to get canceled? Like what has to happen for games to get canceled? We should have a better feel for like what would get games canceled mid-season than we do right now. Because I have no idea. What are you shaking your head at?
Oh, stupid guy named trolls. Fire Danny Ainge. See ya.
Yeah, you got... Okay, bro, you know what's funny is in the past, 2 weeks, there's been, a couple people that constantly create burner accounts, and I can kind of tell by the way they talk. People that literally take the time out of their day to create account after account after account to try and trash talk and take and just dig at us, which is funny to me because it's bro, one, you're helping my content by watching it so much. Two, you're taking a ton of time out of your day to make a comment that legitimately doesn't bother me. It's really hard to bother me with a YouTube hate comment. So what you're doing with your life is taking a bunch of time out of your day to try and bother me, and it's not working. It's not successful. That's kind of sad. You know what I mean? It's kind of sad how hard some people try and they still fail and they still literally make burner after burner after burner to try and trash talk. And legitimately, their views are just good for me. You know what I mean? Cool. View my video 10 times. Give it an extra 15 views with your burners. It's funny because legitimately, and then when I see the hate comment, takes what? How long did it take you to hide that channel? 5 seconds?
Yeah.
A little less than 5 seconds?
Yeah.
It takes them at least a couple minutes to set up a new account, at least. So, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good trade-off, right?
Yeah, well, this guy was talking about the same things that some of the people we've hit before are talking about. Mm-hmm. Anger issues and not reading comments and stuff. But, he's a Celtics fan. I didn't see a single question from him, yet he's saying, we never look at comments and never read anyone's questions. Well, it's a Blazers channel. Even if we were even if we were getting questions about the Celtics, which I'm very happy to answer, but I didn't see a question, first of all. And second of all, don't come into a Blazers channel and get mad that we're not talking about the Lakers and the Celtics like two people did earlier.
Bluefish, nah, man. Nah. I like calling it out, bro, but trust me, you should see some of the comments that people try and make, man. I'm 100% used to it. When I started doing YouTube, that stuff definitely would bother me, but I'm 100% used to it, bro. I have literally people that'll basically trash talk me on radio, bro. So some random making a burner account posting in the chat is not going to bother me. Come on. But in terms of answering questions, we usually save questions till the end because there's topics we want to touch on. During post-game streams, we'll answer questions a little bit more than we do during these streams, but we generally want to touch on different topics for you guys, and then at the end take questions. But normally the streams run a little bit longer than expected, so we don't have a ton of time to answer questions. But that's why we have the mailbag, man. Nobody should call us out for not answering questions, because literally all you have to do is go to the previous mailbag video and ask a question on it, and we will literally answer it in a video, unless it's a repetitive question, but we'll still answer that question if it's a repetitive question. We'll answer one of the people that posted that question. And if it's like a decent question, we'll answer it in the mailbag. I literally answer every solid question in the mailbag, or I try to. Maybe I'll miss one here and there, but bro, the last dig that should be taken at us is they don't answer their community's questions. I literally answer people on Twitter all the time. I answer people in the mailbag all the time. But yeah, so that's the thing. It's just ridiculous. That's the thing. People will try and make up like ways to try and like take digs, like, oh, you broke your promise about an upload streak. I never promised an upload streak. I said I'm going to try and get an upload streak started. I might miss a day or two here, but I'm going to try and upload one video a day. And like, I took an extra day to make that schedule breakdown because I put a lot of work into like breaking down projected strength of schedule over certain stretches and all that. That video took a lot of work. But bro, like I took an extra day on that and I missed another day. Like, that's gonna happen, bro. You're dropping a mailbag and then I'm gonna drop a video tomorrow. So there's probably 2 videos coming out tomorrow. A video came out today. A video came out last night. Video came out a couple days before that. Like, we've never put out this much content, man, and people are still like trying to complain, like, oh, you broke your promise. I never promised anything. There's people that try and twist everything we say, and normally we ignore it, but we'll call it out every now and then. It's just what you get with the territory.
Yep. Yeah, check that earlier, Caleb, if you want to hear our thoughts on that.
Yeah, exhibit. Yeah, I can for the people. The J script thing. I saw somebody ask about Exhibit 10 contract. Basically, it's a contract that is a non-guaranteed contract, so you can waive the player, and I think you only owe them like a very small bonus, and it doesn't affect the cap. You can... Basically, an Exhibit 10 contract is a contract where you have the flexibility to make it a normal NBA contract, a two-way contract, or a G League contract. Basically, you, in the... like... At some point before the end of training camp, you have to designate it as one of those 3 contracts or waive the player. So that's basically all it is. A ton of players will get signed on Exhibit 10s that never see a lick of time in the NBA. So honestly, it doesn't mean much when players sign Exhibit 10 contracts. Hopefully I didn't get anything wrong there, Eric, Mr. CBA guru.
Sounds pretty legit. Yeah,
it's kind of confusing.
They were way down this year because of the G League going to a bubble format or like a single city format and all that kind of stuff. So, several teams opted out of having a G League team too. They had till the weekend to do so.
We didn't have to make a decision on that.
We don't have one, so yeah, it doesn't matter. But we won't be sending like Blevins down to the G League, so it won't matter. They're going to be with the team all year. Allison asked a good question, which I'm trying to find. She asked, does Nurk have to quarantine like 2 weeks, or does flying from Bosnia not require quarantining for a long time? I believe since the NBA has daily testing, that as long as he clears a certain 3 or 4 days of testing and isolates until he's clear, I believe he can jump right into it. He doesn't have to do the full amount of time.
Is he back yet, or?
Yeah, he just got back last night, I believe. Either that or this morning. And Stott said he wouldn't be available for practice tomorrow. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he should be able to play for that first preseason game if it happens. But we don't need him to play for that first preseason game. I want to watch Giles, and I want to watch Derrick Jones Jr., and I want to watch Anthony. I want to watch Nas. Like, those are the 4 guys I really want to watch. And CJ Ellaby, I guess, just to see how he looks out there on an NBA court. That's, the players I want to see. I would be fine if the Blazers didn't play Damian Lillard in any preseason games. I mean, we've had tough luck with injuries. Like, me as a fan, like, I'm a fan of the Niners too. They've had horrible luck with injuries. My fantasy team has had pretty bad luck with injuries. The Blazers, terrible luck with injuries. So it's like, I'm cool if Nurkic doesn't play a preseason game. I'm cool if Dame doesn't play a preseason game. I understand like getting warmed up and whatnot, but like Dame takes care of himself, and Dame is gonna be ready to go no matter what, I feel like. So it's like, I don't really care for those guys to play in the preseason.
Yeah, so Black Boy, thanks. He said it's 4 tests in 4 consecutive days. So if you got a test yesterday, right when he came back, then he would be cleared Wednesday if those all come back positive, or I mean negative. And then if he started today, so then it would be Thursday before he got cleared.
Caleb said, "Thank God Suggs didn't have a major injury." Bro, I was like, that's 100% an Achilles. He falls down and he's holding his Achilles, and it gave me Rodney Hood deja vu vibes, man. I was so upset when that happened. And then it's like, oh, he just barely turned his ankle and he was playing the second half. I was so relieved. It was like, I couldn't handle like a third team that I'm a huge fan of Gonzaga, the Niners, the Blazers. Like, Blazers obviously number one, but then like number two is both Gonzaga and the Niners. All three of those, the two of those teams have been screwed by injuries. If it happened to Gonzaga, that'd be rough. I couldn't handle that, man. I'd have to give up on sports. Eric would have to take over the channel, and I'd go move to a foreign country. Like, I cannot handle more injuries, man. So, fingers crossed. I'll knock on wood every time I say the word if I have to, just to keep us injury free. Luckily, we have the depth, so we should be able to rest guys. You know, we shouldn't feel pressured to play a Rodney Hood if his Achilles is a little bit sore, which we did, and then he tore it. You know, we hopefully shouldn't have situations like that. And shouldn't have to play Dame like 37 minutes again.
Yeah, Sam, I've been arguing with people like that all day too.
Gets rough, man. So anyway, if you have any questions, Eric's dropping a mailbag, and you can leave them in the comment section of Eric's mailbag video that he'll drop tomorrow.
Yeah, if we play Among Us, it'll probably be tomorrow. If we don't, I could probably finish it tonight.
We'll probably play. So yeah, tomorrow just leave the question on there, and I should answer it in the next mailbag. And then Thursday we'll have a stream, and I don't know what we'll have planned for that. We'll probably preview some things we want to see in the preseason, but I'll drop a video for that. So everything's just kind of fluid. You can also always ask us on Twitter. We might not reply on Twitter because we do get a lot of questions on there, but you can always ask us there. We genuinely try and answer most, if not all, of your questions. Yeah, these streams are just, going a little bit longer, so we don't have a ton of time. That's what happens when you have me, who will rant about media and LiAngelo Ball and all that. It happens. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying. Anyway, Nolan, I've been asked that question multiple times. I'm not too familiar with him. I just know he's going to Gonzaga. Block Boy, I know it was rough. You don't have to rub it in. Okay, Eastbrook is trolling. He said he'll take Portland State over Gonzaga. I hope he's trolling. Anyway, yeah, ask your questions on that mailbag. You'll have videos coming out the rest of this week. On Thursday, I'll drop things I'm looking for this preseason, but we can also talk about that on stream and get some of Eric's ideas on what he wants to see this preseason. So yeah, I'm excited for this next week. Hopefully we get that game on Friday. Hopefully that game gets played. And then those post-game streams, if you haven't been in the loop, will be over here on this channel, not on the main Blazers Uprise channel. During the regular season, the post-game shows will start over on Blazers Uprise on the main channel. So that is the plan. Other than that, nothing else left to plug. Anything else you want to say, Eric?
Nope. Fun
All
talking.
Right. Yep.
Just hope we have a game to talk about on Friday.
Yep. I'm ready. I'm ready to go into post-game mode, man. I am ready for that. Excited for it. So anyway, we'll catch you guys again live on Thursday, and we'll drop some videos in between now and then. And until we catch you next, hope you guys have a good rest of your night, a good rest of your week. Until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.